They are little-known specks of land at the northwestern end of the island chain called Hawaii. Few places on Earth are so remote or so wild. On a remarkable 1,200-mile expedition, Jean-Michel Cousteau leads his team to a corner of the planet where the ancient Pacific still thrives. Surrounded by great ocean travelers, they discover places and species lost in isolation and witness life and death encounters. Travel with a new kind of exploration team to one of the world's farthest islands. It's Jean-Michel Cousteau, Ocean Adventures.
Since setting out from Honolulu to explore the distant northwest Hawaiian Islands, Jean-Michel Cousteau and his team have surveyed 900 miles of tropical paradise almost unknown to the outside world. Their next stop, tiny Laysan Island, is so vulnerable to damage by alien plant and animal species that radical precautions are imposed on visitors. Some of the team's equipment must be left behind.
We have like cloth bags for like the tripod and stuff like that.
Yeah, that stuff probably can't go in.
Well,
unless it's
we better
inspected. Have Beth look at it and say what works and what not.
That's why I've taken my mixer out of its case.
Yeah.
Because I can't take the case.
Am I right? The last thing we're supposed to do is put on the clothes, put on the frozen underwear.
It's not.
They're frozen. Right here on this off the top deck. In the breeze.
So these have already all been sprayed with DEET as the permit recommended before we even sealed them. So if there was anything in the store, we sprayed everything first, sealed it, shipped it with us to Honolulu, and then we froze it for 48 hours, and then we put them in each of the containers here. All for Laysan Island, not to get mixed up with the other couple islands we are still going to land on. The big question is, will all the clothes fit? Antoine, this is yours.
Okay, everybody naked.
We're trying to reduce the number of seeds and insects, any kind of potentially invasive species that might colonize. This is a real simple ecosystem in terms of very few species.
You gotta wear underwear. You don't have to.
Appreciate you guys taking this really seriously. Sometimes people are skeptical about this, but it really does help the island.
Leaving their research vessel Searcher in Zodiacs, the Cousteau team will inspect efforts to revive the native Laysan environment, carried out by a handful of U.S. fish and wildlife workers operating out of tents.
Laysan Island.
That's right.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks.
Blair?
Tom.
Hi. Melissa?
Catherine.
Catherine? Nice to meet you. Karen? Laura? Blair. Nice to meet you all.
You have to take the position that we know nothing, and thus we want to avoid making mistakes. So you are the ones who should tell us what to do and what not to do. Okay? So we're here to support what you're doing, and definitely we want to have the least possible impact. Okay? So thank you.
Serene now, Laysan was once a destination of treasure hunters. The prize here was not gold or jewels, but clumps of guano, formed by the chemical interaction between coral sand and the droppings of millions of seabirds. Guano was highly valued as a fertilizer and for making explosives. Mining crews worked amid Laysan's vast bird population for about 20 years during the late 1800s, shipping guano around the world. Poachers followed, devastating the birds by pilfering eggs and killing them for their feathers, which were used to trim hats. A public outcry stopped the practices and led President Theodore Roosevelt to protect Hawaii's birds in 1909, but the damage to Laysan had been done. Living far from the mainland, workers had introduced rabbits to supplement their food supply. The rabbits overran the island and left it so devoid of vegetation that sandstorms became still another threat to the seabirds.
Birds got buried by drifting sand. And that still happens today up in the north part of the island, which hasn't revegetated. On really windy, stormy winters, the staff will go out after a big windstorm and find birds buried up to their neck that would surely die if they didn't dig them up.
So if you were to left this island alone, there's a possibility we would not even see any of these plants here today.
Right.
Because
yeah.
of the
they would,
rabbits and
exactly. They lost practically everything.
And that in turn would wipe out the birds here?
Absolutely. There are a number of very special plants in this shade house. These are finch-proof cages. They are extreme opportunists, and they'll eat anything you plant. They'll eat anything they can get their little beaks around. This pretty little plant is called Meriscus penaniformes. It's a native sedge found only on this island, that subspecies, an endangered species. So this is the native fan palm. Early on, the guano miners and all the folks that came through here cut them for wood, and they were lost very early on. But these guys have had very good luck with getting them to sprout and getting them to survive. So we've got a few little areas now that soon we hope will have little groves of Pritchardia again. For some of these, we're actually enhancing the populations of already existing species here. So this one, the Chenopodium, Veo, we have populations on the island. They may have been planted here in 1923 when they did the first propagation and the first outplanting to restore what the rabbits had done.
So roll these up, loosen up the sand.
Yep, and then you should come out with a tube like this, and then just dig a hole with your hand. Plant it in the ground to the same height that the plant was in the tube.
Now, how long will I have to wait until I come back and see the plants this big?
These were planted about 3 months ago, 3 to 4 months ago. So
we'll take these back to the greenhouse for other seedlings?
Yep, we'll reuse them and come back out, plant those as well, and hopefully we get something started here.
We want to make the community as much like it was before as we can.
To learn what might live below the surface of the shallow, extremely salty lake in the center of the Laysan Atoll, Jean-Michel sends Blair Mott on a kind of bizarre dive.
So Blair, apart from what we know we're going to find here, the shrimp and a little bit of tiny fly.
Yeah.
With all your experience looking at this lake, and what do you really believe? Do you think you're going to find something?
If I dig, I'm thinking maybe some clams, possibly. The high salt content is throwing me off. Maybe
Now,
some
honestly,
worms.
are you looking forward to this experience?
It's a new place. That's what I'm looking forward to.
You're
That's
probably the
it.
first one diving here.
First one on compressed gas. I will say that. I do know that.
Good luck, Blair. Don't worry, I'll write to your mother.
How many minutes should we give him, do you think?
Well, you'll run out of air before anything can happen.
20
It's
minutes?
that tiny little tank. Hooray!
Above and beyond.
Go for it!
First scuba diver in Laysan Lake.
Yeah. Max depth, 12 feet.
12 feet? That's pretty good.
And you start to feel the salt coming in.
Oh, really?
Any of little cuts and areas that you have that high salinity. Now down in the brine, it was divine. With the shrimp giving me that thumbs up sign. I did see the shrimps everywhere. So their biomass is really high in this lake. Besides that, without some more digging tools, I couldn't find any worms or anything, but investigating, there's about Some areas up to 5-inch layer of semi-hard pack of guano. So that covers the entire bottom, and underneath it is similar to the sand that we're walking on. I swam to the left and I swam to the right. The shore's now distant, like out of sight. I can barely taste it, there's so much salt in the water. So I'm back on the shore with salt in my mouth. I've done it, I've swum it from north to south.
Lesson scuba diver, 12 feet deep.
I appreciate every moment I had in Lay Sand Lake.
Fertile seas and isolation sustain millions of birds in the northwest Hawaiian Islands. But for countless seamen, the rocky and jagged reefs of the island have led to disaster.
I mean, there's nothing worse of a nightmare than to run aground.
But how, so a Japanese longliner?
It appears to be.
So?
You can still see the plating.
Yeah.
Not a good day.
Well, the worst kind.
Not a good day at sea.
Then, evidence of something more sinister running aground here.
In the geological record, if someone came back 10,000 years from now, there's going to be just a very thick layer in the sediments that's just plastic.
Right. When we found out that not only the island is covered with debris which comes from the open ocean, but those debris which we discard everywhere is being picked up by birds who collect them because they are eggs, fish eggs usually, that have been laid on these pieces of plastic. And the parents brings it back to the island and feed their chicks. Lighters coming from all over the world, children toothbrush, adults, mascara, we have toys. We have soldiers. We have vials with still stuff in it. That went into a bird and back into another bird. Nature can take a lot of punishment. These creatures here are doing unbelievably well when you think what they have to put up with. And at the same time, perhaps too much is too much.
Ironically, the same ocean currents carrying debris to the islands from thousands of miles away also nourish tropical seascapes of extraordinary abundance and beauty. Searcher is now 1,000 miles out from Honolulu on yet another passage between islands.
From a northerly gale through the ice and wind and rain.
Biologist Jim Marigo's music smooths the miles. The voyage to Kure has begun to feel like an exhausting marathon of tight quarters, little privacy, and endless chores.
In the the cold Kamchatka Sea. But now we're bound from the Arctic ground, rolling down to old Maui, rolling down to old Maui, me boys, rolling down to old Maui. We're homeward bound from the Arctic ground, rolling down to old Maui.
The rare whole wheat flour new to brink.
So, if by any chance you remove this, which I'm going to do without any pain, what is it?
Banana slug.
No, it's a monk seal. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
To old Maui. So that's a song, a goodie and oldie, about 150 years ago, about the whalers that came to Maui. Thank you, Jim.
Another daybreak, another island soon to appear on the horizon. This one a notorious sailing hazard called Pearl and Hermes Atoll, after two whaling ships lost here 180 years ago.
Pearl and the Hermes. Now you can see it all.
Yeah, you
along.
see it all on there. Pearl and Hermes is, of course, named after shipwrecks. The Pearl, I think, ran aground first, and then Hermes tried to pull her off and met the same fate and wrecked as well. The two crews constructed a boat and then rescued themselves, basically, by sailing off.
You know, I was looking at the Hawaiian necklace that has been attached to the bow. To me, as long as it's attached to the bow, it means that we haven't had any bad weather.
Should we put some duct tape on there to make sure it doesn't? This is the channel in, the small boat channel in. And there's only a few places that you can actually enter. The one thing about Pearl and Hermes, it is a fairly complete atoll until this, except for over here where it's fragmented. It is literally, it's wild in here. I mean, you can get, people have spent a day sort of finding their way out of here.
These Pacific navigators, you know, those guys who only had the wind to power them. No wind, current, reefs, run aground. You know the reef is there, you're going at 6 knots, or 3 or 4, and there's nothing you can do.
In the winter of 1952, a former World War II Liberty ship was carrying grain from Honolulu to Korea. When the captain miscalculated his course and hit Pearl and Hermes at 10 knots. The crew of 36 escaped in a lifeboat, but the vessel could not be dislodged. Amid the highest population of fish and the most fish species in all of the Northwest Hawaiian chain, the ship slowly broke apart under heavy seas. Common throughout the islands, shipwrecks initially can tear up and pollute a reef. But for a mating pair of sergeant majors, they provide flat space for an egg nest. For other bottom dwellers, they offer housing, and they also serve as a kind of downtown for the island's abundance of cruising fish. Pearl and Hermes is also a favorite mating spot for the region's spinner dolphins. No people live here permanently. Only a few researchers in temporary quarters. A lonely existence watched only by the monk seals that come here to feed and breed.
My name is John Sprague, and I'm a volunteer for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service.
2 or 3 months with no pay whatsoever. very dedicated. Typically, they are resupplied by the normal boats that brought them, but I do have 3 buckets of food to fill in some of their gaps. They're leaving in about a month, so.
Been on Pearl and Hermes for the last few months, and we're working on particularly nasty invasive plant species called Verbicina enceladis. It's a native to the Midwestern United States. Made the trip over to Hawaii in the 1800s and out to Midway and Kure via the United States military and the Coast Guard. At some point in the mid-1990s, seeds from Midway or Kure made it onto Southeast Island, which is where we are here.
These are all gear that only go to Pearl and Hermes Reef. Bucket luggage, the best you can buy.
Approximately 20 bunches were sighted in 1997, and since that time, roughly 6 years or so, it has grown to cover over half the vegetated area of this island. I think in a given acre, you will see upwards of 11 billion seeds. And this is a truly huge number and is probably the primary reason that this plant has done so well on this island and grown at such a tremendous rate.
It's a very difficult weed. We haven't figured out how to kill completely yet.
And this is why you freeze your clothes, so you don't bring anything else to this wonderful island.
Preparations begin for a night dive, which can involve more risk, especially in unfamiliar waters. Checking dive equipment can be critical. Gauges are hard to read at night, and they can be vital since the lack of light and dark shading can make it hard for weightless swimmers to know up from down. Complications arise when a rebreather unit fails to work properly. The repair means a frustrating delay for one of the 2 dive teams, since the camera team can spend up to 3 hours below using rebreathers. They descend to scout and to shoot wildlife scenes.
So this is my first time down here, so you move towards the edge and then it just starts to get slopey and then ledgy.
It's like a rolling hills, and then what it is it's the reef peeling off. It's so fragile and frail, I mean, you can just touch it and it'll fall. And then it drops down about 10 feet. So it's one layer of a reef that formed probably during the last ice age.
It's good to be close to the drop-off. Lots happening.
Yeah.
The camera team films for an hour while repair continues above.
Inside here, there's a flat O-ring on the inside that seats against this fitting. So I think it was leaking right in there.
The problem is solved, but the delay leaves Jean-Michel and his team with a smaller window of time to film in the darkening waters at 100 feet. Galapagos sharks above, darkness below, and unpredictably powerful currents so strong, the swim to meet the camera team takes Jean-Michel and Holly nearly an hour. As they reach the bottom shelf, another minor glitch. Their light goes out, leaving them momentarily blind to the surroundings. The malfunction turns out to be brief, but it's a reminder that uncovering what's hidden in the sea, especially at depth, is a delicate enterprise. They come upon a puzzle, an anchor from a modern vessel. Investigating afterwards, they find no record of such a ship. Did a storm tear it from its anchorage in this distant place, or is there another untold story here? Just one of the countless mysteries these atolls and reefs keep. The currents are proving too strong. Television doesn't usually show it, but not all dives go well. Unpredictable conditions can make some frustrating